Before I begin this story, let me ask you something. What would you do if the person you trusted the most humiliated you in front of everyone? And what if, at that very moment, someone you never expected stood up for you? Stay with me till the end, because this story is going to touch your heart. And if it does, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that will move your soul. It was supposed to be the happiest day of Alina's life. She stood in her bridal dress, trembling with nervous excitement, her heart pounding with dreams of a beautiful future. She had loved Samir for years, believing he was her soulmate. Friends and family had gathered, the lights were glowing, the hall smelled of roses and incense, and the music carried a soft promise of joy. Everyone looked at her with admiration, whispering about how radiant she looked. But deep inside, Alina was praying. Praying that this day would mark the beginning of a new chapter filled with love and respect. As the ceremony began, Samir entered with his friends, laughing loudly, almost arrogantly. At first, Alina brushed it off, thinking it was just nervous energy. But as the ritual started, his attitude began to change. His tone grew sharper, his words careless, his eyes heavy with pride. He made jokes during the vows, cutting her off, ridiculing small mistakes she made while following the traditions. "You can't even do this properly," he whispered, loud enough for others to hear. The laughter of a few groomsmen echoed in the hall, and Alina's cheeks burned red. She lowered her gaze, embarrassed, trying not to let the tears ruin her makeup. But it didn't stop there. When it was time to exchange garlands, he smirked and pulled the garland away just as she reached forward, making her stumble slightly. The hall erupted in awkward chuckles, but Alina felt like her dignity was being stripped away piece by piece. She had always imagined her wedding as a sacred moment of love and honor, not a stage for mockery. She forced a smile, swallowing the lump in her throat, but inside, her heart cracked. What Alina didn't know was that her father, whom she thought was still outside greeting guests, had been standing just behind Samir during the exchange. A man of quiet dignity and unshakable principles, her father had worked his whole life to protect his daughter from pain. He had raised her with love, teaching her that she was worthy of respect. And now, on the day he was giving her away, he watched the man she chose tear her confidence apart in front of everyone. His fists clenched, but he remained still, his eyes filled with disappointment and sorrow. The breaking point came when Samir, in his arrogance, leaned toward his friends and said just loud enough for others to hear, "She's lucky I even agreed to this. Look at her, do you really think she deserves someone like me?" The hall fell silent. Gasps echoed. Alina froze, her hands trembling, her breath caught in her chest. She wanted the ground to open and swallow her whole. At that moment, she felt smaller than she ever had in her life. Tears blurred her vision, and for a second, she believed the lie he had just spoken, that she wasn't enough. But before she could fall apart, a voice thundered across the hall. "Enough!" Everyone turned. Her father stood tall, his eyes blazing with both pain and authority. "Samir," he said, his voice steady but laced with fury, "do you think marriage is a game? Do you think humiliating my daughter makes you greater than her? You think you are doing her a favor? No, young man. She is the one who lowered herself to believe you were worthy of her love." The crowd was stunned. Samir tried to laugh it off, but his voice wavered. "Uncle. I was just joking." "Joking?" Her father cut him off sharply. "A husband's first duty is respect. If you cannot give her that today, on the day you are supposed to honor her the most, then what future can you promise? You don't deserve to be her husband. And I will not allow my daughter to begin her married life with a man who humiliates her." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then, slowly, whispers filled the hall, whispers of support, of agreement, of respect for the father who had the courage to stand up. Alina's eyes welled with tears, but this time, they weren't tears of shame, they were tears of relief. Her father walked up to her, placed his hand gently on her shoulder, and whispered, "You are my pride. Never believe for a second that you are less than anyone." Samir, now exposed in front of everyone, stood awkwardly, his pride shattered. His friends looked away, embarrassed by his behavior. The ceremony came to a halt, but instead of humiliation, Alina felt a strange sense of strength rising within her. She realized that love without respect is nothing but a cage. And that day, she was freed before the cage could close around her. As the guests began to leave, people came to her father, praising his courage. "You taught us all a lesson today," one elder said. "Too many times we stay silent when we see injustice, especially at weddings. But you reminded us that dignity is more important than tradition." Alina walked beside her father, holding his hand tightly. She no longer felt broken. Instead, she felt renewed, reminded of her worth. And though her wedding day didn't end as she had dreamed, it gave her something far greater, the realization that she didn't need validation from anyone who didn't respect her. Months later, Alina found herself in a new chapter of life, not with Samir, but with herself. She pursued her career, surrounded herself